The FTSE 100 has ended the day up 50 points at 76.09. The pound buys $1.26 and €1.12. LBC weather, dry with clear spells for most of the UK through tonight, a low of 2. Tomorrow showers over the far north, warm and sunny further south with a high of 26 degrees. From Global's newsroom for LBC, I'm Lisa Aziz.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation. The Nigel Farage Show.
Mr. Nigel Farage.
Thank you, Donald, and good evening, everybody. Well, Prime Minister's questions today, and arguably Mrs May in better form than she's been for a very, very long time. Now, you can guess what the subject was. Yep, it was Brexit. But unusually, Jeremy Corbyn raised the subject because week after week goes by at PMQs, and the Labour leader doesn't talk about it. He's been under, of course, as you know, the most massive pressure in his own party to shift Labour to being a full, all-out second referendum Remain party. And I have to say, he is moving pretty rapidly now in that direction without quite being able to use the words. Let's listen to the House of Commons earlier on today, Jeremy Corbyn speaking and the Prime Minister responding.
This government, Mr. Speaker, is now an irrelevance. The two candidates to succeed her have only got fantasy plans. Since she and her successors have no answers, doesn't the Prime Minister accept the best thing to do would be to go back to the people and let them decide which way we go?
That's a change of position, isn't it? That's a second referendum, effectively.
Can I say to the right honourable gentleman, I've made the point now, I think in answer to 5 of his questions, but if you want to ensure that this country leaves the European Union with a deal, you have to vote for a deal, which is what he and his colleagues have consistently refused to do. But there's another question for the Labour Party on this. With all this talk about no deal, the question really is, where does the Labour Party stand on Brexit?
I agree with
Shadow
that.
Brexit Secretary doesn't support Brexit. The Shadow Foreign Secretary doesn't support Brexit. The Shadow Chancellor doesn't support Brexit. The Labour Deputy Leader doesn't support Brexit. Labour want to block Brexit, and that would be a betrayal of the many by the few.
Oh. Well, that was clever, wasn't it? The betrayal of the many by the few. I like that. Gosh, this Theresa woman, she's really quite good, isn't she? Funny, isn't it? When you know they're going as Prime Minister, they become demob happy, and she was really very much in control of it. Let's just listen once again to exactly what Jeremy Corbyn was proposing.
The best thing to do would be to go back to the people and let them decide which way we go.
So you see, he can't bring himself to say another referendum because that would be too much of a surrender as he's been holding out. But effectively, that is what he's now saying. The Labour Party is now, let's be honest about it, it supports a second referendum. It is now a Remain party. There's no pretending anymore. And the question is Mrs May right when she says that if Labour try and stop Brexit, they are betraying the many by the few? If you're a Labour supporter, I'm really keen to hear tonight from Labour supporters. Do you think Corbyn is right now to have shifted his position to go back to the people? If that's how you feel, if you're happy that Labour's doing this, call 0345 6060 973, or maybe you agree with Mrs May, because I do. I mean, you haven't heard me say that often on the show, have you? But I think Mrs May was really very good today, and she's right. Labour are betraying, selling out their people. That's my view. That's how you feel. Please text to 84850. And what of Corbyn's comment that May's would-be successors have only fantasy plans? And I think what he's really referring to there is that both Hunt and Johnson have said that if we can't get a better deal with the EU, we will leave on WTO terms, on no-deal terms, on the 31st of October. Is Corbyn right to call that fantasy plans? Please tweet using the hashtag Farage and LBC, at LBC, and of course, Facebookers, YouTubers, and many others. You, of course, can comment there too. I've been in Strasbourg today. I will, at the bottom of the hour, bring you up to speed with what's happening in the European institutions. But let's stick with this. Is Mrs May right? Is the new Corbyn position effectively the betrayal of the many by the few. And I think potentially it really, really is. Mark is my first caller tonight from Haverfordwest in Pembrokeshire. Good evening, Mark.
Good evening, Nigel. Thank you for taking my call.
Not one bit.
Right, okay, fair enough. Well, right, I'm a Brexiteer anyway, okay, through and through.
Okay.
So I've supported you right the way through. On Corbyn used to be an anti-Europhile, now a fully fledged Europhile.
Is he? Is he really?
Well, he's not, but the thing is, he's panned into a party that only keeps him in power as long as he plays their tune. So the thing is, he's a puppet. So Theresa May, with her now, she's just come out and made a stronger statement in what she's saying today than she's ever done before. But she's a totally Remainer herself, so she excluded herself from that. So the one thing I'd like to ask you, really, Nigel, to be quite honest with you, I've been an avid supporter, and more so since you came on the scene, I became even stronger in my opinion that we could get out of the EU. But the thing is, the House of Lords now have just become now aware of something that's happening that refuses and will block Britain from leaving the EU completely. And what that is, and you yourself have said it, well, you always say EU Army, but it's Defence Union that was signed on the 14th of December last year, which committed our forces into the European
Well, we are, yeah. I mean, it's a slightly separate issue, Mark, but you're right. The European Defence Union, the European Army is gathering speed. And interestingly, after all these sort of 3 days of jockeying and negotiations that took place in Brussels over the last few days, we now have a proposed new Commission President. And of course, Ms von der Leyen is a massive supporter of a fully fledged European army, German commissioner being proposed, and her vote here in Strasbourg will take place on July the 15th. So all of that is pushing ahead and pushing ahead quickly. Mark, let me ask you very quickly, do you think that Corbyn effectively, by saying what he said today, is actually betraying Labour Leave voters?
He's betraying every one of us. He's betraying the nation himself. And I'd like to say about you yourself yesterday when you turned your back on the union.
Oh, yes.
The thing is, people were like sort of slandering you quite viciously.
Yes.
And quite honestly, I'd like to just bring one little question up. It's to do with our history and our constitution. But many decades ago, if a new king was brought, he'd have to be accepted by the nobles. And if the nobles thought, well, I don't accept you, they'd turn their back on him. And that's part of our constitution.
Yeah, no, there are lots of historical precedents for people turning their backs, including women's rights campaigners in the Canadian Parliament, etc. But when I do it, Mark, they all scream blue murder.
Yeah, but what you did, you turned your back on a sovereign state that isn't sovereign, really, because the thing is not what the people want. They don't want it.
Well, nobody in Europe ever voted for this to become a country, and that's what President Tajani of the European Parliament said yesterday. Mark, great to talk to you. I'm going to move on. Paul on Facebook says, Corbyn is selling out 5 million Labour voters by supporting a second referendum. Max says, Corbyn didn't have a good word to say about the EU for 30 years. He's sold out. Not a conviction politician, is he? Actually, Mac, Corbyn is in many ways a conviction politician, but there are two issues that he cannot win with his own party. One, his own desire for unilateral nuclear disarmament. They won't live with that. And the second is that Parliamentary Labour Party is now a pro-Remain, pro-second referendum group. And if Corbyn fights that, they will simply do their best to get rid of him. Let's go up to Whitehaven in Cumbria and speak to Robin. Robin, I thought Mrs May was rather good today, Robin.
No, I didn't really. I think we've heard it all before from Nigel. She's at times finished. She's got nothing to lose. So, you know what I mean? She'll go down in history as probably the worst Prime Minister that we've ever had.
Could be, yeah.
What I'd like to say is what your question was. Someone who supports Labour. I support the Labour Party, and I voted to leave the European Union. But I do think, like Jeremy Corbyn, it'd be easier and more sensible just to go back to the people, a second referendum. And I would still vote to leave. So I can't be accused of being a remoaner or whatever. But I do not see where the numbers in Parliament will get us past anything other than what Mrs May done. It's still the same. It's Groundhog Day. go back to the people again, and if we vote to leave again, we'll leave. If we vote to remain, we'll remain. But I think we probably have a percentage. You have to have so many to get past the mark, sort of thing, rather than like 1% or whatever like that. But I really do think it's the only way we can move forward is go back to the people on the general election.
Robin, let's stick with the referendum question. I don't agree with you, because my view is if you go back to the people, put them through the agony of another referendum, I would really feel strongly they would vote to leave by a bigger margin, but with the numbers in Parliament we've got, it wouldn't change anything. They'd still ignore it. I think the second comment you made is probably the right one. Maybe, just maybe, a general election would change everything.
But that's the only way, Nigel. Anything is going to change, because it doesn't matter whether Boris Johnson's Prime Minister or Jeremy Hunt. It doesn't matter. The numbers are still the same. Parliament's gridlocked on this. So that's the only two sensible ways to give business certainty is either have a general election or go back to the people for another referendum. Yeah. And I am a leaver. I voted leave.
No, I get that. Leave again. I get that, but I repeat the point. If you go back to the people in a second referendum and they say we want to leave again, this Parliament, given the numbers that are there, given the way they feel about this, would simply ignore it. That's what I think. Robin, thank you for your call. Chris in Harlow says, Nigel, Labour have finally revealed their true colours, a Remain party. Corbyn saying we should ask the people which way we go. Chris feels it's a complete sellout. I agree with Mrs May. Labour are the ones who are stopping us. Get your finger out, Labour. We want out, says Mary in Holloway. I find it hypocritical of the PM to accuse Corbyn's new stance as betrayal, because she lied and betrayed us at every turn. Well, Chris, there are many out there who feel that they've been let down by everybody. In fact, a piece of polling a few weeks ago showing that 92% of Brexit voters felt they had been betrayed. And I can't believe there's ever been a time when there was so little trust in government, Parliament and our two established parties. You're listening to The Nigel Farage Show here on LBC at 6:15, and time for the news headlines with Lisa Aziz.
Police believe 2 railway workers who were hit and killed by a train in South Wales this morning were wearing ear protectors. Police investigating the murder of a pregnant woman in South London say they're still trying to work out a motive. The baby's now died. And British number 1 Carl Edmonds out of Wimbledon in the second round, losing to Spain's Fernando Verdasco. LBC weather: dry with clear spells for most of the UK through tonight. A breezier with some rain across the far north, a low of 2 degrees.
LBC Travel, I'm Katrina Ridley. It's very slow on the M25 clockwise from junction 10 for the Wisley interchange to junction 11 for Chertsey after an accident earlier. In Seven Sisters, West Green Road is blocked both ways because of a building fire. Ferry Lane in Tottenham's also closed in both directions between Black Horse Road Station and Tottenham Hill Station after an accident earlier. And the A127 remains closed eastbound for a police investigation between Hall Lane and Folkes Lane, and that's after an accident. On the train, severe delays on TfL Rail. That's between Liverpool Street and Shenfield, and that's because of a faulty train.
This is LBC.
Esso customers using their Nectar card could win up to 100,000 points with every fill. So to miss optimistic in the convertible at pump 4, your luck's in, because the only thing that's going to be raining on you today are Nectar points. And a gentleman in the van at pump 8, you could spend your winning points on a new pressure washer and blast off all those hilarious pictures your mates had drawn on the back of your van.
Esso Nectar, helping fuel your everyday. T's and C's apply at participating Esso sites until 24th of July. Visit esso.co.uk.
This is LBC.
Sharing credit card details on scraps of loose paper. Finding battered receipts in the wash. Stressing out your accountant. Expense management doesn't have to be stuck in the dark ages. Say hello to Soldo. Company cards that do your expenses for you. Give your team prepaid cards to simply spend, snap the receipt, and that's that. Spend smarter. See the light at soldo.com.
With my new teeth, I feel confident that I can eat absolutely anything I want to eat. French bread, steak.
At Darwood & Tanner, we use our expertise in dental implants to change lives.
It makes a huge difference in confidence when you can open your mouth and smile and laugh out loud with your mouth open without displaying huge amounts of grey, black or missing teeth.
Download your information pack at darwoodandtanner.co.uk today. Your smile is our healthy obsession.
Renewing your tax credits is too important to forget, so here's an unforgettable reminder.
Don't forget to renew your tax credits. It's very, very, very important.
Renew your tax credits by the 31st of July, or your payments will stop. Go to gov.uk/manage your tax credits today.
When it comes to business meetings, some things never change. Like the crumbling realization that you were too busy scoffing custard creams to take any notes and haven't a dunking clue what to do next. But some things do change. Like a new kind of conference call that lets you record the minutes rather than write them. Dunk away, my custard commando! You've got this! Conference call, video call, and screen share with PowWow Now. Join free today.
The world of financial investments can be complex and intimidating, which is why you trusted the experts at your bank. But they let you down and sold you an investment that lost money. At Goodwin Barrett, we'll help you through the process of making a complaint and winning the compensation you deserve. Right now, Goodwin Barrett are offering a quick investment assessment to discover just how much you could be owed. To start yours, text GOOD to 60777. Text GOOD to 60777 now.
This is LBC, live from Strasbourg, the Nigel Farage Show. Call 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Tweet at LBC using the hashtag Farage on LBC.
My commiserations to the women's football team who lost last night. But you know what? 11 million people watched that. I think women's football's got a real future. And a bit of breaking news that I like. England have beaten New Zealand and we're through to the semi-finals of the World Cup cricket. I say this, of course, because I do have tickets for the final. I'm hoping we're going to get there. Is Jeremy Corbyn, is he ever going to get into the final? Well, of course, if he hadn't shifted his position, they were going to do their best to oust him. That is why at the weekend you saw those stories about Jeremy Corbyn's health and was he physically and mentally fit to lead the Labour Party. This was all a massive campaign to force him to back a second referendum, to back Remain. And today, he's pretty much done it. He can't bring himself to use the word referendum, but he says to go back to the people and let them decide which way to go. That is now Labour Party policy. And is Mrs May right when she says that that is the betrayal of the many by the few? Now, my next caller is Pat from Normanton in West Yorkshire. She's a new caller. And, of course, Pat, you have rather a well-known local Labour MP, don't you?
Yes, we do, yes. Yvette Cooper. Yes, very nice lady, I do not think.
Well, I'm sure she's absolutely charming, Pat. But on Brexit, she was, she really is, I think, for Leavers, target number one almost, because she promised everybody she'd abide with the result and then has done her utmost to prevent it from happening. Are you, Pat, can I ask you, are you a Labour voter in her constituency?
I used to be. At the last general election, I actually voted independent. We didn't have... no, I didn't. I voted UKIP, sorry. We didn't have an independent candidate. But I voted UKIP as a protest vote because I wouldn't vote for her. I think she's absolutely... She's been terrible. And I've heard, I don't know how true this is, that her and her husband, Mr Balls, have already rented out their house in Castleford because they just don't live there anymore. I can't remember the last time she was seen in and around her constituency.
Pat, you know what? I don't care where she lives particularly, but no. I do care. I do care that she's turned her back on Brexit voters. And your constituency was 71% Leave in the referendum.
Yes, it was. Yes.
So is Mrs May right when she says that basically Labour now, is the betrayal of the many by the few?
Absolutely, yes, but I do think that the way forward is to have a general election, and if we have a Brexit Party candidate in every constituency, and we have a look at election fraud before we actually have a general election, we might have a chance of seeing this country go forward.
And what, Pat, what would the Labour Party under Jeremy Corbyn have to do to win you back?
I don't think they could, actually. When Jeremy Corbyn took over, I remember going to a rally that they had in the Featherstone Rovers football ground, and I thought it was actually a breath of fresh air because Yvette Cooper was one of the ones who stood to be leader of the Labour Party, if you remember, at that time. And he seemed to speak common sense, and it was more down to earth because she was more, conservative than the Conservatives. And I thought it was going to be good for the party, but he's not. He's just totally wrong, and he's never done anything to make people want to support him. He seems to sit on this fence. He's been sitting on this fence for so long.
I think he came off the fence today, Pat, didn't he? I think, when you say it's time to go back to the people and let them decide which way to go, he's kind of off the fence now, Pat, isn't he?
Well, yes, but people's vote, why can't he just say he wants a second referendum? We've had two referendums. We've had the referendum 3 years ago when people voted to leave by a majority of 1.4 million. Then we had the MEP elections where the people showed them exactly what they wanted to do. They wanted to leave. And they're still not listening. There's many of these MPs that need replacing.
No, Pat, I get it. And, you've been a Labour supporter, you've been to the rallies, and they're going to struggle to ever get you back, it seems to me. Thank you for your call. On Twitter, I get this. Now the majority want to remain, as a lot of people have finally woken up. Those that still want to leave are either cult members or just plain thick, and should not be allowed to destroy the UK and our economy. Shame it's anonymous, really, isn't it? But I think that actually does sum up the way that quite a lot of Remain activists think. They genuinely think that Leavers are just so inferior to them, and that really, suddenly the country's Remain. All I would recommend you do is actually study properly what the opinion polls are saying, and listen to Professor John Curtis, who without doubt, is the doyen of all political commentators. And Curtis says very clearly that the Leave side has hardened over the course of the last few months. I also get this. If you are so confident that more people want to leave, then why are you running scared of a second referendum? Because we've had a second referendum. Whatever direction we take, we all know that you and your pals have done more damage to this country than the EU ever could. But of course, you won't read out an opposing view. Paula from Bedford, I take opposing callers. I am more than happy to take an opposing view. I'm more than happy for you to ring 0345 6060 973. It's an outrage to ask people to vote again, but the problem is even deeper. A second Leave vote would still be ignored by this Parliament, and that's what I really do believe. I am going to Rugby to speak to Dave, who's a new caller. Hi, Dave.
Hi, Nigel. I just read about today's announcement by Corbyn. It seems he's basically bowed to the inevitable of being in charge of a Remain party.
Yes.
But by the same token, that has the vote is seriously split on that side between them and the Lib Dems. But then again, so is the vote split on the other side between the Tories and ourselves. By the way, well done at the NEC. I was there cheering you on.
On Sunday, yeah, thank you.
Yeah, great, fantastic, loved it. My question really would be that are you going to be talking seriously with the Tories over the coming months and whatever, in the event there is going to be an election, to come up with some sort of a system whereby you ask them to stand aside in certain seats where the polls are showing that you're going to win it?
Dave, I think, the answer to that is people talk about deals of all sorts. You have to be able to trust somebody. And right at the moment, I'm not sure I trust Boris Johnson or Jeremy Hunt to actually want to deliver a proper clean Brexit. I just don't. Boris today wants to remove, sugar taxes, and yet at the same time, Matt Hancock, as part of his team, wants to put them up. I don't know where he stands on HS2. I don't know where he stands on a third runway at Heathrow. I don't know where he stands on anything. So I think all this talk about deals, Dave, frankly, is really rather premature. I'm guessing Boris will win. And we'll find out, I guess, by the end of September, who the real... He'll chicken out and kick the can down the road. But I really, honestly hope that I'm wrong. Dave, thank you for the call. Down to Southend to speak to Martin. Good evening, Martin.
Hiya, Nigel. Nice to speak to you again.
Good to speak to you. So, Jeremy Corbyn shifted. He's now backing a second referendum. Is Mrs May right with her criticism?
Totally. Jeremy Corbyn, on my phone, I've got speeches of him saying stuff about Europe. You won. It doesn't matter. I don't know what's the matter with these people. Everyone knows what's going to happen. What's going to happen is Boris is going to get in. His own party's going to bring him down. We're going to have a general election. You're going to win. then we can change the country. We could even bring down the BBC, which I ain't watching about.
Now, wouldn't that be fun? I'll drink to that, Martin. Absolutely.
The last thing I watched on BBC was Top Gear about 5 years ago. I pay about £130 for Sky. What is even the BBC for?
Martin, I tell you what, we will debate that at length another evening, all right, I promise you.
It's like saying, Nigel, tomorrow you've got to wear a red shirt. Why is that? The government says.
You sound pretty angry, Martin, with the state of the country.
I'm angry with I'm angry with everything. I just sit there and I listen to these MPs go against their own people and sit there and call people stupid.
I know.
It's stupid people.
It's a level of insult. It's abuse. It's appalling. Martin, you're a star. Joe in Sheffield's a new caller. Good evening, Joe.
How you doing, Nigel? You all right?
I'm going fine. So, you come from a Labour part of the country, but interestingly, most of that part of Yorkshire voted Leave. Has Corbyn effectively betrayed the many?
Corbyn, for me personally, I'm not advocating for him because I'm not a big Corbyn fan, if I'm honest, and I've voted Labour for a number of years, but that's definitely something that I probably wouldn't consider doing again, if I'm honest. Mm-hmm. But equally, I think it's the first actual thing that he said that actually makes sense for the first time in quite a while.
All right, so you think Labour becoming a second referendum Remain party is the right position?
I think it's a position that needs to be put out there, given the fact that everything we're hearing so far, everything that's coming out of Jeremy Hunt's mouth, Boris's mouth, we're all now expecting something bad to happen once Brexit finally occurs. Where on earth are the sensible solutions? We're talking about suspending Parliament. We're talking about, why on earth aren't we imploring the only single sensible option, which is actually, now that we know everything, why can't we vote on it again?
Because if we vote on it again, Joe, and we vote to leave again, this Parliament will still ignore us.
That's absolutely fine. I totally appreciate that.
No, it's not fine. It's not fine at all, is it?
No, I'm not saying that it's fine that the government will ignore us. Absolutely not. That's not the case whatsoever. But the fact is that the first referendum they had, the information wasn't all on the table. And I think it was you that said in June 2016 that the EU made up more than half of our laws. Is that right?
About 75% of our commercial law, yeah.
75% of our commercial laws. I wasn't
higher, 80.
Okay,
so if you're running a business, whether it's a giant pharmaceutical or it's a local corner shop, about 80% of all the laws that affect everything you do, from product standards to environmental law, is made in the EU. Now you can argue, Joe.
Yeah, I know. Well, you say that, but that's quite funny because we've got two local businesses that we run in our house. We've all started up ourselves. And I will say one thing about our houses, we have quite a diverse house. We swing from the left to the right. We don't really tend to stick on one side, and we like to play devil's advocate with each other because we think it's important to encourage a healthy discussion, especially amongst young professionals, people that are actually going to be coming into the generation that's actually going to be leading the country at some point. So when we discuss it, though, why on earth are we giving out this rhetoric of believe in Britain and believe in all this when there's no sensible, logical answers, nothing that makes legal sense, nothing that actually will work for the country?
So better to be governed in future and to sort of recognise the fact that our leaders now are based in Brussels. They're people like Christine Lagarde, Charles Michel, and indeed Ms von der Leyen. You're happy with them making the big decisions that affect our future, yeah?
No, I didn't say that, did I?
I'm asking you. I mean, either we're in or we're out, yeah?
Yeah. All I'm saying is now that everyone understands anything, what's the damage in asking the public now that they're given these answers? Jeremy Hunt's saying that he'll happily look a business owner in the eye and say, "Oh, sorry."
I tell you what, Joe.
It's worth it.
I tell you what, Joe. You may get your way because if Prime Minister Johnson thinks risking a general election could cost him his premiership, maybe he will call a second referendum. I don't know. Anyway, we must move on. It is now 6:32 and time for the news with Lisa Raziz.
Police believe 2 railway workers who died when they were hit by a passenger train in South Wales this morning were wearing ear defenders so couldn't hear it approaching. A colleague who was with them on the track near Port Talbot has been treated for shock. An investigation started. Detectives investigating the murder of a heavily pregnant woman in South London say they're still trying to work out a motive. The 26-year-old's baby, who was delivered by paramedics after the attack in Croydon, has now also died. And British number 1 Carl Edmonds Netherlands let a commanding lead slip in a 5-set loss to Spain's Fernando Verdasco in the second round of Wimbledon. But England are through to the semi-finals of the Cricket World Cup after a dominant victory over New Zealand. LBC weather, dry with clear spells for most of the country tonight, breezier in the north along with some rain across northern Scotland and a low of 2 degrees.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast. Weekday mornings from 7. LBC.
The BBC under fire yet again. £11 million pay rise. This, of course, as it continues with its decision to cut free TV licences for those over 75. Payments to the BBC board and executive committee, they gave themselves an extra £900,000. But we can't afford to give a TV licence to a D-Day veteran. Who is running the BBC?
Nick Ferrari at breakfast.
With Xero. Get your business digital ready with Xero accounting software.
LBC.
When it comes to business meetings, some things never change. Like the always awkward greeting. The hug you thought was a handshake. The one kiss, two kiss, can. The guy that fist bumps around the boardroom like a bro. But some things do change, like being able to veto the awkward greeto and video call via the web instead. Ooh, yeah! You got this, bro. Conference call, video call, and screen share with PowWow Now. Join free today.
Meg, the driving instructor, is definitely almost 90% sure she's filing her VAT right. Kinda. But she'd be more confident with QuickBooks. QuickBooks is perfect for making tax digital and is HMRC recognised. Get up to 50% off your first 6 months. And maybe put it towards a new clutch.
Making tax digital means monthly VAT returns are changing too. Are you ready for the 7th of July? Visit quickbooks.co.uk for details. QuickBooks, backing you.
Divorce. It affects every part of your life. You, your family, your home, your finances. And if you're a man facing divorce, perhaps even one you don't want, the situation becomes even more complicated. It's at times like these that you need a professional you can trust. Cordell & Cordell is dedicated to helping men in matters relating to divorce. Call now on 0330 60 60 161 or visit cordell.co.uk, office in central London. A partner men can count on.
Managed to fill those jobs yet?
Oh, I'm struggling.
You know Mark in HR? He was telling me about Hiring Hub. It connects you to loads of vetted specialist recruitment agencies, so you can widen your candidate search quickly, without any hassle.
Really?
Yeah. You post a job, and recruitment agencies you select send you their best candidates.
Want to fill professional jobs faster? Search Hiring Hub and post your job today.
Mark's nice, isn't he?
Really?
For hundreds of years, Indian food has been about sharing great food with the people you love. For over 5 years, Manjal Restaurant have brought North and South India together in the heart of London. And due to its success, now we've come to Chigwell Loughton. Experience the essence of India and make memories with Manjal. Book now at manjalrestaurant.com.
Sharing credit card details on scraps of loose paper. Finding battered receipts in the wash. Stressing out your accountant. Expense management doesn't have to be stuck in the dark ages. Say hello to Soldo. Company cards that do your expenses for you. Give your team prepaid cards to simply spend, snap the receipt, and that's that. Spend smarter. See the light at soldo.com.
The Nigel Farage Show, live from Strasbourg, only on LBC.
So Jeremy Corbyn wants to go back to the people and let them decide which way to go. May says that's the betrayal of the many by the few. But before I get back to that and whether Mrs May's actually got this right, what's happening in the European Union? So Christine Lagarde is going to be in charge of the European Central Bank. The Belgian Prime Minister, Charles Michel, gets pushed up and he will take over from Donald Tusk at the European Council. And this lady von der Leyen, former German defence minister, she is supposed to become the new replacement for Jean-Claude Juncker at the European Commission, which left one more big job to be sorted out. And they agreed last night in Brussels that the European Parliament president would be a guy called David Maria Sassoli. Now, I know the bloke, he's fairly innocuous, nice sort of chap, see him in the coffee room. Why him? Because the whole thing is a Franco-German stitch-up. The French and Germans have got the big jobs. Another Belgium has got a huge job, unbelievably. And, of course, the South were furious. If you're a southern Eurozone country, you've got no representation and a German running the European Central Bank. If you come from Central and Eastern Europe, you now virtually don't even exist in this club, and they actually quite often loathe and despise your prime ministers and what they say. So it had to go to a socialist from Italy, and we went through the charade, the farce today of actually having a contest in the European Parliament after all the major players have been forced to withdraw. And guess who won? David Maria Sassoli. He is now, actually, I know you've never heard of him, but he is now the new President of the European Parliament. I mean, literally, to call that today a democratic house in action was nothing less than a complete and utter farce. Back to Labour. Corbyn and Labour are now the party of Remain. They can share the Liberals' vote in that case. But Corbyn promises to renationalise our utilities. How can he? The EU won't let him. Jim, you are absolutely right. You can't do those things as part of a single market. Max is pretty angry. We've already had a second referendum. It was the last general election when the electorate voted overwhelmingly for two parties that were in favour of Brexit. I get one here. Why shouldn't Remainers fight back? You haven't shut up for decades about leaving the EU, but you're still happy to turn up and take the EU coin, even though you won't represent the nation as a whole. No, I'm here to represent the people that voted for me. That is kind of how parliaments work, at least I thought it was. Let's go to Bushy and speak to Jackie. Good evening, Jackie.
Good evening. Hi.
Hi there.
I have to say that I think that it should go back to the people. I think that Labour have made the right decision to back this. I think, though, Nigel, here's an idea that the first referendum votes still count, and they go back to the people with either the no deal or whatever deal comes through.
Yeah.
And then those votes get added to the first. So it's like the two ends of the process. So nobody's vote is wasted or overturned or whatever. So that means that potentially, if people want to remain, they have to get more votes, another million on top of whatever. Yeah. So,
Jackie, I don't think you can take an election that took place over 3 years ago and count those numbers towards anything, frankly. If the referendum was to be no deal or some form of new European treaty, but Jackie, why put the country through all of this?
Because the country has been, well, going back to what one of your previous messages that you read out about the 2017 election, Theresa May called that on the basis that she was seeking a mandate from the country for Brexit or her idea of Brexit or whatever, and they didn't give her that mandate. And I remember looking at all the commentary afterwards, and people were saying, well, maybe she'll have to soften whatever Brexit she comes out with, blah, 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 blah. Northern Ireland won't like this, etc., etc. And all these things have come back to haunt us. And that's why we appear to be in this deadlock.
Well, I understand the desire to Brexit. I understand, Jackie. I think the trust, it's not about trusting the people, it's about trusting the politicians. I mean, come on, Jackie. You know, that document that David Cameron sent to every house in the country at a cost of £9.4 million said our vote would be respected, and it hasn't been, Jackie. Do you understand why, Jackie?
I do understand that. I do understand that.
You do? Okay.
But I think that everybody, I mean, when she came back with this treaty that had been signed, everybody felt that that was a betrayal. So everybody is feeling some sense of betrayal. But now that we have more, now that we know potentially what is going to be on the table, then I think we should rubber stamp it or go against it and just stick with what we've got.
Right. Okay, Jackie, I hear your point of view. I understand it. I don't agree with it, but I understand it, and I thank you for the call. On Twitter, betrayal by the few. You mean thrusting a new Prime Minister on the country, voted in by the few. General election now. And Dave, of course, 160,000 people only are going to decide who the next Prime Minister is, which, when you think about it, is really pretty odd. On Twitter again, your no-deal stance would be a betrayal of the many. We have rejected no deal in a general election and EU elections, really, since 2016. There's also the small fact that every single Leave campaigner promised us a deal. Jacinta, I coined the phrase, no deal is better than a bad deal. And I used it during the referendum. And since then, Theresa May used it. The trouble is, she didn't actually mean it. Clive is calling from Twickenham. Good evening, Clive.
Good evening there. You hit the nail on the head just now when you said that list of items that we were given to vote on this Brexit to withdrawal or not. Not many people got that. Nobody was given a list of the things that would happen if we came out, except immigration. Of course, they mentioned that and played on that a lot, and that turned a lot of people's minds to go out.
It did. Yeah.
We were not told what would happen if we came out. Now, all this list of people you've given who are in charge now, why the hell don't we argue with stay in, argue with a toss with them, and get a decent deal out of them, which all the others have got?
Well, Clive, because the new proposed Commission President is an EU fanatic who wants the European army completed as quickly as possible. The Belgian... I mean, look, these people taking over the European Union are building a new country called Europe, Clive. It's a state with a flag and an anthem that I wouldn't respect yesterday. We're not going to change their minds, Clive.
Well...
We're not.
It's the biggest trading bloc there is. Now, isn't that a good thing to be a member of that, rather than rely on China and America?
Clive, you tell me that, but it's only now, the Eurozone is only now 15% of global GDP. Next year it'll be 14%. Within 10 years, it'll only be 7 or 8% of the world economy. And I would just say this, Clive, I want to trade with Europe. I want to be friendly with Europe.
Yeah.
I want reciprocity. I want student exchanges. I want to do all those things. But we voted to leave the political structures, and you say, well, no one told us what leaving meant. Well, no one told us what remaining meant. You can never be certain.
Well, we had plenty of time to argue the toss when we were in there. Why the hell didn't we?
Because, Clive, we tried for 40 years to reform it and change it, and we didn't succeed. And then when David Cameron...
we should have threatened them time and time again and did something about it. They just weren't strong enough in their threats.
Look, when in the final push came to shove, David Cameron came to get some renegotiations, and they knew if they didn't give it, they risked us leaving. They refused to give an inch. We voted to leave. Clive, I thank you. You're listening to The Nigel Farage Show here on LBC at 6:46, and time for the news headlines with Lisa Aziz.
Police believe 2 railway workers who were hit and killed by a train in South Wales this morning were wearing ear protectors so couldn't hear it approaching. Detectives investigating the murder of a heavily pregnant woman in South London say they're still trying to work out a motive. Her baby's now also died. And British number 1 Carl Edmonds out of Wimbledon in the second round, losing to Spain's Fernando Verdasco, while England have qualified for the Cricket World Cup semi-finals. LBC weather, dry with clear spells for most of the UK tonight. Breezier with some rain across the far north and a low of 2 degrees.
LBC Travel, I'm Katrina Ridley. Delays continuing on the M25 clockwise from junction 10 for the Wisley interchange to junction 11 for Chertsey after an accident earlier. Anti-clockwise on the M25 queuing from junction 6 for Godstone after a lorry broke down. And the A127 remains closed eastbound for a police investigation between Hall Lane and Folkes Lane after an accident. And in Seven Sisters, West Green Road is blocked both ways because of a building fire. On the trains, severe delays on TfL Rail because of a faulty train at Ilford. And on the underground, signalling problems at Tower Hill have caused minor delays on the District and Circle line.
Coming up at 7 on LBC, Ian Dale.
Cross question at 8 with Canadian political strategist Andrew McDougall, feminist writer Julie Bindel, Conservative MP Tracy Crouch and Labour MP Mary Cray.
Ian Dale on LBC.
Sharing credit card details on scraps of loose paper. Finding battered receipts in the wash. Stressing out your accountant. Expense management doesn't have to be stuck in the dark ages. Say hello to Soldo, company cards that do your expenses for you. Give your team prepaid cards to simply spend, snap the receipt, and that's that. Spend smarter. See the light at soldo.com.
Becky, you've been out there for a while. Come and top up your sun cream.
But I'm powering up.
What do you mean?
You can get electricity from the sun, right? So I thought I'd try it too.
I don't think it quite works like that, love. But either way, you need more cream on.
Fine.
At Shell Energy, we supply all our home energy customers with 100% renewable electricity as standard. Just their homes, mind you. Search Shell Energy. Home energy matters. Visit shellenergy.co.uk.
Ready for some unmissable summer savings? The B&Q clearance is now on in-store and at DIY.com. You'll find big discounts across the store, including selected barbecues, garden furniture, laminate flooring, tiling, paint and more. Better hurry though, when they're gone, they're gone. You can do it when you B&Q it.
At Indeed, we understand that when it comes to hiring, it's important to have a large talent pool to choose from. But sometimes too many good options can be overwhelming. That's why Indeed doesn't just give you access to a large pool of job seekers. We also offer screener tools that let you instantly narrow down your search. Hone in on hiring with Indeed. Experience Indeed for yourself today and get a free sponsored job upgrade on your first posting at Indeed.com/redeem. Terms and conditions apply.
Are you a business owner who's ready to retire? Or maybe an entrepreneur ready to sell and move on to your next exciting project? At Barnes Rofe, we actively work with successful entrepreneurs to help them through the sales process and maximize exit value. So why not get some first-rate advice and speak to one of our experts? Your first meeting will be free and you can make sure you really are getting the best deal. Contact us at barnesrofe.com. Barnes Rofe, clever accountants for business.
There's nothing like meeting face-to-face. And there's nothing like Zoom to make that happen. Zoom lets you connect and do business across town or around the world. Zoom ties together all of your communication needs into one easy platform for video conferencing, phone calls, group chat, webinars, and your conference rooms. Connect easily from anywhere, your mobile phone, your laptop, or conference room. Zoom is how business gets done. Get your free account at zoom.com today. Meet happy with Zoom.
London, we have a problem. Our air is toxic, and driving polluting vehicles is the main cause. The air that I breathe, that my friends breathe, that my mum and dad breathe, and that you breathe, can cause lifelong diseases. But there are solutions, like making our transport greener and creating better spaces to walk and cycle.
These are just some of the ways the Mayor of London and TfL are helping to improve air quality across the capital. Find out how you can make a difference too. Search Let London Breathe. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
This is LBC, live from Strasbourg, the Nigel Farage Show. Call 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Tweet at LBC using the hashtag Farage on LBC.
It's understood that China's ambassador to the UK has been summoned to the Foreign Office over comments from Beijing about protests in Hong Kong. Foreign Secretary Jeremy Hunt earlier warned Chinese authorities they should not use violence during pro-democracy demonstrations as a pretext for repression. Now, there was an extraordinary news conference that took place earlier on today in London. The Chinese ambassador, Liu Xiaoming, said the following.
The UK government chose to stand on the wrong side.
Oh, really?
It has made inappropriate remarks, not only to interfere in the internal affairs of Hong Kong, but also to back up the violent lawbreakers.
That's because, Mr. Ambassador, we just happen to believe in democracy and freedom and liberty, and we do feel a sense of responsibility over that territory. Well, I'm very pleased he's been summoned to the Foreign Office, and I hope Jeremy Hunt really gives him a piece of his mind, perhaps even invites him to go back to Beijing. I don't know. But I don't know how you feel about this, but I've been watching what's been going on in Hong Kong over the last 10 days or so, really cheering those people on as they stand up for their democratic rights. And I think, I think China is a very, very worrying country in many, many ways. Well, Jeremy Hunt's got his chance. Who knows? If he really acts tough on this, it could make a difference to the leadership contest. Back to Jeremy Corbyn, who really has shifted remarkably. 3 decades of attacking the European Union. Various speeches I played on the show over the last year where, he makes me look like a shrinking violet with the way he talks about Brussels, and yet now he's saying we've got to go back to the people. He's been pushed into it by his own party, and the Prime Minister says that this is the betrayal of the many by the few, in what was one of her best lines used in Parliament in a very, very long time. I'm going to the Isle of Wight to speak to a new caller called Ian. Good evening, Ian.
Good evening, Nigel. Nice to talk to you.
Good to talk to you. So, is Mrs May right for once in her criticisms of Corbyn?
Yeah, she's right, but it's not just the Labour Party, it's the whole of the Remain Parliament, which includes Conservatives. And I think, they blame Brexit for this division. It's not Brexit. It's the fact that the electorate's representatives in Parliament are supposed to represent us, promised to represent us, and reneged on their promise. That's the real issue. Brexit didn't cause any of this. It's the parliamentary democracy that has.
Well, I think I rather agree with that point of view, Ian. And Ian, tell me, how angry do you feel about this?
Well, I know nothing about politics, Nigel, but for 3 years now I've become a specialist. Because
I tell you what, every pub in the land is now full of specialists. I promise you.
That's more about nothing. But what annoys me is over the last 3 years on Twitter, all you get basically is propagandist abuse from Remainers. Now,
Yes.
over the 3 years, I don't know anything about Euro, but I now know, how corrupt it is in terms of we're paying that £39 billion. There's £1 billion worth of known fraud. They built ghost airports and wasted millions. The ECB and the Euro are wobbling. And then you look at the countries and you've got Germany's got rising poverty. France, elections are upset. Sweden, immigration problems. It goes on. Belgium strikes. Denmark, cultural problems. Finland, deaths from air pollution. Don't tell me that's a good organisation to be in. But why don't the Remainers put a positive argument forward, not just propaganda of why we should stay in it?
Yeah, generally what they try and do is to use the threat of economic harm. That's what they're trying. But you're right about Twitter. Twitter in particular. For example, Ian, stay with me. I've just got this tweet in from Dan. He says, democratically elected sovereign governments have a mandate to do what is best for the nation's prosperity and security. If that means revoking the outcome from a referendum that has proved impossible to implement without causing huge harm, so be it. So Dan says, actually, you're dead wrong, Ian, on the Isle of Wight. A government and Parliament can just say, do you know what? We'll forget about that referendum. How would you respond to Dan?
Well, he's correct. Legally, the Parliament can do what it wants because we've given them the power for the majority in Parliament to do what they want. But they did promise Labour Conservatives to deliver the result of the referendum. That whole Parliament wants cleaning out and get some representatives in there who are going to do what they promised to do. That's the problem.
There'll be a lot of people, Ian, listening to you right now saying, yeah, he's right, that bloke. Ian, thank you very much indeed for your call. As a Labour Party member and Corbyn supporter, I feel he should not give in to the pro-EU fanatics in his party and stick with his anti-EU views. He is a Bennite who has always been anti-EU. Tony Benn would never have changed his mind. What has happened to those left-wingers who always hated the EU? Well, Peter in Guildford, you're absolutely right. And younger listeners probably won't realise, but if you go back to the 70s, it was basically those on the left of the Labour Party that really led the campaign for us not to join the common market, and indeed in 75 to leave it. And these big names like Tony Benn, Michael Foot, Peter Shaw and many, many others. There were Conservatives too who felt that way, but it was the Conservative Party in those days that was overwhelmingly pro the EEC and Labour that was against. Let's go to a Labour town called Barnsley and speak to Martin. Hi, Martin.
Good evening, Nigel. Mr Corbyn sat on the fence, and if the Labour MPs like Keir Starmer, Emily Thornberry, to name Butterfield, if he'd have been allowed to sit on that fence for another 2 months, he wouldn't have had to call for another referendum. He'd have got his wish of a general election. Everybody's seen the trap. Dominic Grieve, Oliver Letwing, had have brought the government down and he'd have got his general election. But they can't see that. They can't see more than 2 steps in front of the nose. It's like panic-stricken all over. Both parties. Boris Johnson's probably seen everything. I can't understand why they just can't take a step back and let's have a look. They seem incapable of judgment.
Do you think, Martin, I mean, are you suggesting to me that we've got some pretty low-grade people in politics these days?
Well, they're very low-grade, aren't they? Because a blind man can see Mr Corbyn set that trap for 2.5 years, and the Conservative Party is about to fall into it, and his own MPs have run in front, Labour MPs have run in front of it. Oh, don't do that. It's so obvious what he's done, Corbyn.
Yeah.
And they're going to stop his trap happening because they're going to do it for him.
You may be right. You may be right. Martin, I've got to leave you there. I've run out of time. I'll finish with this one comment. My sister has lived in Hong Kong for 20 years. The Chinese attitude is a disgusting betrayal of democracy. I'm furious. Yep. And so are all of us who are freedom-loving. Come on, Jeremy Hunt. Kick him out of the country. Wouldn't that be good? I'll be back tomorrow evening in London with you at 6 o'clock. At 10 tonight, it's Tom Swarbrick. But up next, it's Ian Dale.
Nigel, thank you very much indeed. Well, completely agree with those comments on China there. We'll be covering that in the news hour. But at 8, it's Cross Question, our weekly political panel debate show. Former Sports Minister Tracy Crouch will be joining us at 8, as will Labour MP for Wakefield Mary Cray, feminist writer and author Julie Bindel, and the former advisor to Canadian Prime Minister Stephen Harper, Andrew McDougall. But on the news hour, the Mayor of Amsterdam wants to radically alter the city's red light district. More on the LGBT schools row in Birmingham. Number 10 defends the sugar tax after Boris Johnson promises to review it. And the Metropolitan Police have attacked the Electoral Commission.